Hey, what's up guys, it's Gage from ARG, and today we're going to be talking about artifacts, which isn't necessarily a new engine, but it is one that has been recently coming back up into the more general anti-meta kind of, after it's showing at ARG Orlando last weekend. They actually reached the top tables, at least the artifact engine, mixed with a Cosmo deck. So a Cosmo artifacts piloted by Maximilian Reynolds actually reached the top tables, got third place I believe, so congrats to Maximilian Reynolds, and look what you have created. We now have artifacts becoming more public as a way to kind of combat the meta moving forward post Breakers of Shadows, as well as at the current moment. And it just seems like it's a very, very good and solid engine to be able to do that, with the inclusion of a couple new cards, one new card, excuse me, but also the rise of kind of new cards after Breakers of Shadows is released. It's something we can also look forward at being potentially good. So for people that are unfamiliar, artifacts are cards that you will set in your back row. They're monster cards that you will set back there, and they will get effects that happen when they're destroyed back there, and then they special summon themselves on your opponent's turn, and when they're special summoned, they get effects from there. And the effects are normally very, very powerful, because it does take a while to kind of get them out, but they are really detrimental. And if you guys were kind of familiar back in the day when these cards were first kind of released, Hand Artifact Trap Tricks was kind of the deck. It was the deck to beat, and that was the deck that was piloted at Nationals and then won the national event. It was a mirror match in the top two. So Hat was the deck to beat back in the day, and it involved artifacts mainly because the engine was just so powerful, which then resulted in Artifact Morale Attack, one of the key cards, and it being limited to one and having stayed there for the time being, and it is currently still there now. So that's kind of the history behind artifacts. It's kind of what they do, and I just kind of have a few of the key cards pulled up here to kind of go over with you guys again and kind of just describe where they're going to be moving forward in the meta and how exactly good they'll be. So if you guys, Artifact Sanctum, this is probably the most important card of the deck. This is what pretty much the whole thing revolves around because it's just so good. Its effect reads: special summon one artifact monster from your deck, and you can only activate one per turn. You cannot conduct the battle phase you turn to activate this card, and if it's destroyed in by your opponent's card, you can target one card on the field and destroy it if this card is destroyed. So the reason this card is so good is that all the artifact monsters get their effects when they're special summoned on your opponent's turn, and normally you're going to be activating a trap card like Artifact Sanctum on your opponent's turn, so the artifact conclusively summoned off of Artifact Sanctum will get its effect. So if you summon an Artifact Morale Attack off of your Artifact Sanctum, that Artifact Morale Attack would get its effect and pop. And something really interesting to this too is that if your opponent would remove it by some means without knowing it's an Artifact Sanctum, because you wouldn't just space it if you knew what it was, if they were to, for instance, Mystical Space Typhoon, or like a card being released in Breakers of Shadows, Twin Twister it, this is something that's going to be played in multiples, we'll see. If they were to Twin Twister the back row and hit it, you could actually chain it, and then not only get the Morale Attack or the a Scythe, which is the card we'll be talking about in just a moment, special summon that from the deck, get that effect, but you'll also be able to pop a card on the field because Artifact Sanctum was destroyed. So Artifact Sanctum conclusive was just the best card in the entire archetype, and it still probably is moving forward. Just it opens up so many plays, and it allows all your artifacts to be able to simply get their effects and not have to go through other means to be able to get them off your own board, or even having to draw them and set them into your back row. You can skip that completely and just be able to pull artifacts from the deck, which is extremely powerful. So that's kind of the basics of the artifacts. Now let's look at moving forward here. We have Artifact Morale Attack is still currently a 1, arguably one of the most powerful cards in the artifact kind of arsenal we have. Being able to have a non-targeting popping effect is just so powerful in the sense where it just disrupts so many plays, and it's very hard to stop, because if you remove a target that might be potentially hit by Morale Attack or make it non-targetable, it can just remove something else from the board. So it's always going to be pretty much all the time getting that 1-from-1 that it just so desperately needs. So the Morale Attack is a very, very powerful card, but again, it is at 1. So looking at more replacements for it, we do have a card like Artifact Scythe kind of coming up as the new MVP of kind of the Artifact engine, and for a good reason. So let's read Artifact Scythe here. It's essentially the same as all the artifacts, and I'm actually not going to read it all, where if it's destroyed, you special summon it during your opponent's turn. But its unique effect is your opponent cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn this card's summoned. So if you special summon it on your opponent's turn, they can't use any cards from the extra deck. They can't fusion summon, they can't synchro, or XYZ summon, and that is very, very powerful. They also, notably, can't pendulum summon from the extra deck. that actually had a little key point too against Clifford's back in the day when this card was released. Normally when your player, it had a little bit of showing in Shaddoll format, when if you were to play the artifact variant of Shaddolls, you could actually special summon Scythe and prevent your opponent from going into their Shaddoll extra deck. Or if you're playing against Clifford's, it had, I guess, not as good of a kind of application there, but you could stop your opponent from special summoning Clifford monsters from the extra deck at that point. And Burning Abyss, of course, you stop them from XYZing into Dante's or anything. So that's kind of when this card had a little bit more of its showing. And as for hand artifact trap tricks format, this card didn't see as much play because Moral Attack was at 3 at the time, and it was just so powerful. But now that we're moving into more of a pendulum-related format, XYZ-based, extra deck-based format, Artifact Scythe kind of just shows its teeth, and it's nasty. Being able to prevent your opponent from going into any extra deck monsters at all or using their extra deck at all is absolutely detrimental to literally any strategy we have right now. If we think about moving post Breakers of Shadows here, Performa Pals is going to be the best deck right now, and pretty much it's just a whole bunch of little dudes turning into really massive dudes or really, really good extra deck cards that prevent your opponent from playing the game. Now, you take out that aspect of them being able to go into their extra deck at all they do is have a whole bunch of floaters on the board that just sit there and do nothing, because you can't use anything to make anything bigger. So it's just potentially, I guess you might be sitting on a couple of little Perform Mage guys. Perform Mage Plushfire, if you're lucky, is going to be on the board, and nothing to go into with them because Artifact Scythe just shut you down. So anything like a Trap Trick Falsia or a Cyber Dragon Infinity that would normally pose a problem is completely irrelevant at the time if you did bring this out, and pretty much you can just wipe their board and go for game next turn. It's just very powerful in the sense that it just prevents your opponent from literally playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And moving past Breakers of Shadows too, we have to remind ourselves that these are not the only 2 cards that we have, or only 3 cards we have at our disposal. We actually have a new card being released, Artifact Vajra, which is actually a very, very, very powerful card being released in Breakers of Shadows that I don't think too many people are aware of. So it's essentially the same thing, but it has, if this card is special summoned during the opponent's turn, you destroy all cards in your spell or trap zone. You might think that's pretty terrible, but let's read how good this thing is. When your opponent, when a monster your opponent controls declares an attack, you can special summon this card from hand. That is disgusting in the sense that you don't have to use Artifact Sanctum to get it out. You don't have to use other means to get it kind of in your back row. And you don't have to set it there and pop it on your own. What you can do is it just has its own built-in way of special summoning it from hand, and it's so simplistic for the fact that if we draw into these artifact sites, or if we draw into our Morphract Morale Attack, if we want to play literally any other artifact, this will just wipe the back row and it'll activate all these effects. So this card's very powerful on its own, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it, which kind of sucks, but I think it's more for the fact that Morale Attack is at 1 currently, and if it was at a higher amount, it would definitely be a lot more detrimental, I believe. But also, we got to remember, if we have a Sanctum sitting in the back row, if we have Sanctum sitting in the back row, we can activate Artifact Sanctum in response to this thing popping everything, and if we can bring out a card like Causadus maybe, and draw a couple thousand cards, because Causadus will draw a card for every card that was special summoned after that. So you'll maybe if you have a couple of these in the back row, go +2 or something like that. Plus, then you get the pop from Artifact Sanctum. So you just get a, well, no, this is destroyed by an opponent's card, my bad. But you will be able to get all those pluses and everything, which is rather important. So looking at artifacts moving forward and everything, I do believe they have a very important spot kind of in the anti-meta. If we want to look at Cosmos moving more forward with cards like Cosmojo, I think you're going to be wanting to play the deck on the more defensive side, which is in turn where the artifact engine kind of shines. And I think it's definitely something to really consider if we want to move forward, playing decks that aren't really pendulum based. Aside from cards like Naturia Beast, aside from cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance, there are other options to play, and we really just have to open our mind to them. And like I said again, with shutting down the extra deck with Artifact Scythe being such a powerful effect, already being proven right now, as it is something being teched in kind of little engines with Cosmos and everything now, there's no telling how crazy it will be moving actually post Breakers of Shadows when everything is relying on the extra deck. And this card's probably just going to become even more nasty. Moving on with Twin Twisters 2 being pretty much a staple in the main deck from now on moving forward in 2 to 3 copies to pop all that counter trap back row and everything. Your opponent might slip up, and if they don't know what you're playing, they can hit that Sanctum, or they can hit that Morale Attack, or that Scythe just chilling in the back row and screw themselves over. So, and they might even just consider these dead at that point, because they might not want to be activating it just in lieu of anything like that. So, I feel artifacts moving forward are a very good potential engine, something to look at, absolutely. Let me know what you guys think of the artifact engines. Do you think they have any any place in the meta moving forward, or am I just kind of just pulling here? I don't know. I think artifacts, from the showing they have now, showing they have potentially in the future, they are something really good to look at. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the artifact engines, and if you guys want to buy or sell product, if you want to attend Hell events, and if you want to read articles from the top players, all3outgames.com is your place to go check out. Be sure to like our Facebook fan page and subscribe to our Twitch stream if you haven't already. But as always, I thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys next time. Gage from ARG, signing out.